Did that mean Luann was sad? Was the reason why she didn't even try to hurt him? And if so, why? Many more questions were popping up in Lincoln's head that he almost didn't catch up to the little discussion happening in front of him. "Sorry, Lynn, but we can't let you sit here," Clyde answered. "Yeah, it's a boys-only table," Rusty added. Lynn bit her tongue and would try to hold back the frown in that statement. She didn't want to give Lincoln more of a reason not to trust her. "I just want to spend time with you guys and my brother. We don't really see each other these days." She spoke in a sincere tone, using a semi-broken voice to effect. Sort of truth to that, Lincoln could tell if Lynn was being sincere, though through his friends weren't too convinced. Well, we're kind of busy eating here and ain't enough room for you to sit," Liam spoke softly, idly moving his books to the space next to him. "Also, lunch is going to end soon," Zach pointed out. "Actually, we still got 20 minutes to eat, then we've got recess," Clyde corrected. Rusty elbowed him. "Dude," he hissed in a low voice, "simplest advice I can give is to keep an open mind. Fear can be irrational and irrational." Miss Lopez's words repeated themselves in Lincoln's head as his sisters continued to pleading with his friends to sit. On one hand, Lynn would have had a reason to be after him after the incident at the hospital. Denying her a seat could also set her off, knowing that what little patience she has. On the other hand, she wouldn't try to cause a ruckus with so many students around, as she didn't change her appearance for any reason, unless was a competition with Saul involved. Along with the fact that her hair was down like Luann's, Lincoln started to think that Lynn might have been upset about something as well. At least not upset as the usual way. Broken punching bags could attest the pent up of her hair of where Lynn was needing to cut loose. Maybe there was something wrong that went on deeper level that he couldn't quite understand. And Miss Lopez did try to tell him to see things for what they instead of assuming for the worst. Lynn was growing steadily frustrated, but trying not to show it. "Look, I know that what this is about happened over a month ago, and me saying I'm sorry isn't going to fix anything, but let her sit." The rest of the group went eye-wide, directing their attention towards the white-haired kid. "She can sit with us. She's my sister." Lincoln spoke with an uneasy voice, holding on to his bad arm to keep himself still. Lynn's mind went blank for a moment, making sure she didn't hear him wrong. Did Lincoln really allow her to sit near him? Just a week ago, he was panicking at the beginning of the same building as her and everyone else, and now she was offering her a seat? Seeing Liam moving his books, Lynn decided not to press her luck any in asking to sit down, and just have the opposite of her brother. The other boys kept sharing glances between Lynn and Lincoln, wary that anything might suddenly pop off. Surprisingly, Lincoln kept quiet as he ate, though every minute or two Lynn would catch him staring at her before hastily looking back at his food tray, while trying to avoid drawing an eerie attention that was never there. It wasn't long before Lynn finally allowed herself to munch on her sub. "So," she took a bite, "how's everything going?" The Jacques spoke with a mouthful, spraying a few bits of food into her tray. "Peachy," Rusty claimed, sulking into his seat. "My main weakness is right after recess, and I'm not ready for it." "You mean math?" Zach asked. "No, I am an ace at math." Liam squinted his eyes at the taller red-haired. "Didn't you beg Miss Johnson to give you a C- last time?" "No, I mean, just a little." Lynn gave a slight chuckle. "Ever asked for a tutor?" "Well, if Rusty would pay attention instead of gawking at that girl that lives across the street from my house, he would be passing easily," Clyde smirked. Rusty gave a fox-hurt look. "I will have you know that I do not do such things." He folded his arms. "Most of the time." The group let out small laughs. Even Lincoln managed to smile. Lynn stole a glance at her brother, who luckily didn't appear to notice. Having a closer view to him, he looked to be healthier than he had been weeks prior. The bags around his eyes weren't from lack of sleep, but more of how they typically were. Come to think of it, Lynn actually noticed aside from Lincoln, only their parents had eye bags. Neither her or her sisters contained them. Surprisingly, as many times as they get in each other's nerves, maybe she'd ask Lisa about it, but though the chances it might be due to constant stress. Anyways, Lincoln's hair was better kept. The face appeared to be lack of any residue on sweat, and as Lynn, who assumed that it came from his panic attacks. He appeared to be eating just fine, despite how knowing his teeth was damaged. The iconic chip in his tooth was noticeably a bit bigger from Lynn's perspective. The Louds knew the cause of this behind this first chip, but those that didn't, let's just say an I-word ball from Lynn, found a target of Lynn's face. The young athlete could remember the tongue lashing as she got both the parents for their recklessness, especially with that crack being on the only tooth that was permanent at the time. Shifting her gaze southwards, Lynn found herself once again staring at the hardened black cloth that was the back of Lincoln's cast arm. The brunette told herself not to stare, but she couldn't help it. Lynn wasn't by any means a doctor, so she could tell what kind of condition the limb would be in. It must have been doing nicely seeing that Lincoln was flexing his fingers without any issues. If there was a smile on her face, it faded as Lynn thought it was the potential complications of her brother, could even be awkward thing of breaking his arm at the elbow. He might not be able to use that arm to its full potential to a weakened point, but that limited stretching aspect, stiff movement, or experience, sudden aches for it was the rest of his life. Now that the 13-year-old wasn't sure if any of those would be true, but it'd likely be the same way if she broke one of her legs too many times. Last time she did that, she was stuck in crutches for a few weeks, and seeing Lincoln stuck with his cast for more than a month made her feel even more worse. It felt as if she gave him a scar that would never be able to get rid of, and Lynn felt like she nearly ruined his life before Lincoln even had the chance to fully start it. Lincoln watched his sister carefully through his pupil, wondering what she was trying to do. He stubbornly followed her gaze into his cast, unlike the smirk or whatever smug look expected from Lynn to have since her injury lasted the longest. He saw a forlorn frown that matched the sorrow filling in her eyes. As Lynn began silently staring back, the other boys ceased their discussion out of confusion. And did the Louds just enter some unspoken staring contest, or they were talking to each other mentally? After a few minutes, Lynn finally broke her gaze, staring at her food while her stomach no longer wished to be filled. Giving a sigh, "I hope you can forgive me, Lincoln," she muttered in a whisper. "I gotta go." Lynn spoke loud enough for the boys to hear, standing up, walking with her tray to the trash can. The boys followed the Jacques back to their eyes until they saw her at the exit of the lunchroom entirely. "Well, that was weird," Zach started. "We still got like 12 minutes left, don't we?" Liam asked, to which Rusty looked at his watch. Clyde looked towards his best friend, who was still staring at the exit doors. "You okay, Lincoln?" The lad blinked his eyes before he came back to focus. "Yeah, I'm fine." "Are you sure? You look like you spaced out for a sec. Lynn didn't scare you that much, did she?" Lincoln shook his head. "No, but I just have a lot on my mind right now." He stared at his food tray for a moment before pushing it away from him. "I'm not that hungry anymore." The other boys looked amongst themselves in confusion and worry. They didn't know what exactly was eating up Lincoln this time. They expected him to be more relieved that his sister was no longer around, yet he seemed upset by that. They also worried about him failing to do their job, but in spite of them refusing to let Lynn sit, they never expected the boy, who's avoiding his own keen, to allow one to be that close to him. Then again, it wasn't like Lynn was actively threatening him, though they had a prior warning via text of what she was planning to do. Regardless, as lunch was coming to an end, the boys hoped that Lincoln would feel better soon after some time outside. What no one realized, however, was that Lincoln heard those 6 words Lynn uttered from her for herself before leaving, and a part of him wanted to say that he did.